Ooh, very official.
Hi, ladies. Welcome back to another episode of Ladies Kickin Ass. Today is going to be a good one. And I'm so excited to be able to have my guest on here today. I'm already being a boob. I was trying not to do this before we hit record, but I'm so incredibly proud of what this woman has accomplished because I've watched her. We've been through very similar life experiences. And I want to introduce to you guys today my beautiful Aunt Mary Bundy. She is an incredible woman that has been through a lot of shit, and she has started her own business and has went out against all odds against her and built one hell of an insurance agency. And, we're all about talking about the nitty gritty here and talking about what it takes to bootstrap and build your own business. So, Mary, thank you so much for being here today. And I'm so excited to be able to tell your story. So, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and give them your backstory on one, why you chose to do what you do and why
Okay.
you love it so much to choose to
Okay.
do it every day.
So, first of all, our viewers need to know I am inspired by you. They don't know that our Miss Tanya here, we took her out of the wilds and she came down to college while we were at college and stayed with us. My goal with Tanya was to let her see that there was a big bad world out there and that she could accomplish whatever she wanted. And for the roles to be reversed it's been super fabulous. So our viewers need to know that. Let's see. So what inspired
Thank
me?
you for doing that because that was the first time of ever really getting out of that little town that I grew up in and being like, holy shit. Like there's like a whole nother life out here. And
Yeah.
albeit it was Logan, Utah, which uniquely enough I ended up going to after I graduated high school. But
Yeah.
still, it was beautiful to be able to get out to do that. So thank you for that experience.
Just showing you the world, my dear. Yeah, so I went back to college when I was 40 something, and in December 2017, I graduated from Dixie State University in communications, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was having one of those, I knew I always wanted to go back to school. I knew I always wanted to start my own business, and that's where it ended. And I was really struggling. And finally, that spring, my husband was like, Mary, you have got to get a job. I'm like, I know. So I went home to family because I thought, okay, I'm going to get this job and I need to catch up with everybody before. And my mom and I were chatting, and my dad got colon cancer in December of 2013. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, how are you guys paying those medical bills? My dad had chemotherapy and radiation and 8 surgeries. And she looked at me and she goes, Oh, we have this fabulous Medicare agent. There's his magnet on the fridge. His name is Tony. And I'm like, what is I didn't even know what an agent who specializes in Medicare was, what they did. And she said, he is the best. And he's basically saved us like $500,000. Because you can imagine with chemo and therapy and radiation, those bills add up. And I remember thinking, I can do that. So I called Tony and I said, Hey, I would really like to know what you do. You've been great for my mom and dad. And he explained what Medicare agents do. And I said, Well, will you train me? And he said, No, hung up the phone. So,
Oh my gosh. First of all, you got to stop right there because that takes major guts to just pick up the phone. I mean, like, hey, first of all, what the hell do you do? And then second of all, will you train me to do your job so I
yeah,
can do it too?
yeah,
Kudos
that's
to you.
exactly what happened. And
You
he's so
got to be
funny.
brave.
So the next day, I get a phone call and it's Tony. And he says, Who's your dad? And I said, Mark Westcott. And he said, If I train you, I lose half my business, and half my business is in his cell phone. He says, but my wife says we're Christians and I need to do the Christian thing. And I said, Tony, I'll make you a deal. You know me, Tanya. We're deal makers. I said, Tony, I'll make you a deal. I will not get my license in Idaho. I will not take one contact out of my dad's phone. My husband and I live in St. George, Utah, and I'm going to open an office down there. And he said, okay. He said, all right. So that was the beginnings of why, because Tony literally saved my parents' financial future, because had they not had a good Medicare agent, they would have been living in my basement. You know, people can't afford chemotherapy and radiation. And, you know, they would have had to have sold everything they own to pay for everything. And I was so grateful. I was like, that's what I want to be for as many people as I can find. And that was the start of my journey. So I got my insurance license in May of 2018, started my own business. We were living in St. George, Utah at the time. And I remember thinking, where do I want to open my office? Because our house at the time, it wasn't possible to have a home office like Tony has. And I drove around and I knew that I was going to open an office in Mesquite, Nevada, which is 40 minutes from St. George. So my brother-in-law came to Mesquite and we drove around Mesquite and looked for office rental space. And then my best friend graduated from college and we decided to go into business together. And we started Bridge Insurance. So that's how it started. That's what inspired me.
That is so cool. What a great way to start, because it's an incredible story to tell everybody that comes in to your new business now, that there's really like heart behind the reason why you started your business. I
Right.
think a lot of times people find they're like trying to find their purpose. They're trying to find this, and it's like this mystical whatever out there. You're like, find a problem and become the solution, and you now have a business,
Yes.
which you were personally affected by that. So you saw the problem that your parents had, you saw a solution, and you had enough guts to call somebody to mentor you or teach you how to do it,
Yeah.
which is super huge. Like,
You think
for
so?
everyone that's listening, again, it is like pick up the damn phone and call somebody. Like, it's amazing. Do you think you would have had that result if you'd have sent him an email or a text message?
Oh, no. No. I mean,
I just
he
had to
hung
point
up
that
on
out
me as
because
it
a lot
was.
of people want, yes, see,
Yeah.
he would have never responded. And then you get resentful and you're like, bastard ghosted me. Oh, he wasn't going to talk to you anyways because he thought you were going to take your business. But now that
Yeah.
you got on and he could hear you and you made the connection and all that stuff, this is stuff that I want people to hear so much, because so many times people are waiting for someone with a damn fairy wand to come and anoint them on the head and be like, pick me, pick me. No one wants to pick me. I don't get a chance. I don't get a break. Make your own break. And
Yes.
it's a matter of picking up the phone and asking somebody for something. So,
So the
so
second
cool.
most important thing, a reason why I'm successful, is because of perseverance. When I had talked to Tony, I decided, okay, this is what I want to do. I made that decision that come hell or high water, I was not quitting. And there were times I didn't have enough, or I only had enough gas money to drive to Mesquite 2 or 3 times a week, right? To work on my
Mhm.
business. But and there was a time I went to work for a company who does those phones for deaf people. So you have to type and so they can read. Yeah, because
Mhm.
I didn't have enough cash and I needed some quick cash to keep my business going. So I went to work for them and I did that for a couple of months. But my insurance upline was extremely discouraged because they thought I was leaving the business. And I'm like, no, I just have to get through this hump. And I was determined that no matter what happened, I was going to keep going. If I made $30 a month or $300 a month, my husband was super supportive, which was not support that I had received previous in my life. And he was just like, keep at it, keep going. You know, although he was limited in finances as far as how he could support, he was always very emotionally supportive. You've got this. He was always referring people to me. and just beating the streets, telling everybody. I'm still not great um, at marketing. I have a cousin who lives in Nashville, Tennessee, that is just this genius at people knowing who she is, and I'm not that, but I was just determined that I am going to do this no matter what. And I just kept going. So if I had anything to tell your viewers, it's no matter what happens, I am a Medicare agent and I'm going to keep on going. I'm not going to stop.
Yes. And consistency, showing up every day, even when you
Every
don't
day.
want to. When you're making like, oh, I didn't make any money today. Or sometimes you go backwards, or sometimes instead of put money in your pocket, you're taking it out of your pocket and putting it back in the business in order to keep it going. But when the belief is there, like you had, and the reason was strong enough for you to do that, it's huge. What was another big reason for you wanting to start your business besides what you saw happen with your dad and your mom and the family situation? Why else did you want to have your own business and become an entrepreneur?
I wanted control of my own destiny. I wanted to be my own boss. And it isn't about, oh, I can take all the time off I want, because I do pick my schedule. I always tell my kids, give me a couple of weeks so I don't make appointments if you want to do something. But success was up to me, and I wanted it to be up to me and not somebody else making the decisions. So maybe I'm a control freak that way. I'm okay with that. Probably one of the biggest lessons I learned, and you can take different things from different kinds of businesses, not just Medicare. But as you know, in the fitness world, that 75 hard hit, and people were doing that. And I thought to myself, every day, show up every day. And I decided to do it with my horses. My hobby is barrel racing. I love racing. I love training horses. And I decided I am going to ride my horse every day for 75 days, no matter what. And that has translated into other areas of my life, working on my business every day. Because a lot of times you think, I don't have money to do this, or I don't. But you know what? You have the money to get on your cell phone and call and tell people what you do, or volunteer. Volunteering is huge. People get to know you. So
Mm-hmm.
there's always something that you can do. Always. This, right? I
Yeah.
never thought I would be doing a podcast with the fabulous Tanya Wilson, but here I am, right? And you doubt yourself. There's always the imposter syndrome that who am I to talk to anybody about insurance or success or whatever? And you feel that. You always will have self-doubt no matter what. But who am I? I'm Mary Bundy. I'm Medicare Mary, and I'm somebody that's willing to learn and willing to keep going every day. And it's all about relationship marketing or relationships, right? My clients
Yeah.
know that I'm here. I have an office here. I am in the community. Their friends know I'm here. And that's really what it's about, is taking care of each other.
Yes. Relationships are huge, especially when it comes to service stuff, because people can get Medicare from other people, but
For
why do they
nothing.
come back to you?
Yeah.
They can get septic services from somebody else, but they come back to us for a reason. It is the value that you provide to people. That is what people buy. Really.
Yeah. It's what I
Yes.
provide for my clients is I solve the problem. What do you have right now? Is there something better out there that would serve you better? I know what it is. If there isn't, great. If a problem comes up in the future, I'm willing to fight for you. And that's how I treat every client. Every client, because of what happened to my dad, I feel like I'm responsible for their financial future, right? If I don't educate them, because as a Medicare, and I'm not even supposed to say Medicare agent. I'm an insurance agent that specializes in Medicare, kind of crazy, but I'm not allowed to steer them to a direction. I'm not allowed to say, this is what's best for you. But my goal and what I'm supposed to do is to educate my clients. They come in and they say, what's the difference between an HMO and a PPO and what's best for me? And so it's knowing the right questions to ask, right? And I'm so grateful. My brother-in-law was actually my first client. And I made so many mistakes, and he was so good, and I have those handful of clients that have been from me from the beginning, and they know that, Mary's still learning, Mary's getting it. But after 5 years, I am considered a pro. I'm one of the top 1% producers in Medicare. In what are we? Northern Arizona, Southern Utah, Southern Nevada. We're in this tri-state kind of interesting area for everybody. But it took me 5 years to become a top producer. And these are the lessons that I learned along the way, right? That it's okay to say, I don't know. I don't know. In fact, I got a call this morning, HRA and Advantage plans, and I don't know the answer to that question, but you know what? I will find out, and we will get to the bottom of it, and we're going to do what's best for you. And being able to say you made a mistake, you have to take accountability. This is your business, and you can't say, oh, my agent didn't know, or, oh, you have to take accountability.
Yes.
And look
And
at
you know
your
what? People will be so much more appreciative if you are just honest with them too. Be transparent. You know what? That's a good question. I'm not quite sure, but I'll get back to you. Give them a time frame. Get back to them.
Yes.
People will be like, okay, great. Like, totally understand. It's weird. It's an off question. It's something. But a lot of times, too, I think that probably some of those first people that became clients of yours knew you were a beginner and they liked you and they wanted to support you. I see that with like Aisley showing up to do her little sugar scrub business, and they're
Uh-huh.
like, this is your business? Like, my 14-year-old has an LLC in her own name, which is so
Love
cool.
it.
And what a
Yeah.
cool thing to be able to say. And people are like, they kind of look at me funny, and I'm like,
It's her
she did
deal.
this. She even created her own label. She knows how to run Canva. She helped build the Shopify. She set up her own shopping cart. Like, you can do whatever you want to do. And something that I want people to understand about your background too is you started this business with nothing. And
Yeah.
a lot of people that listen to this podcast may be maybe contemplating leaving a 9 to 5 or starting a side hustle or doing something like that. And they think it's not the right time. I got to save enough money. It's not the right time. I have kids at home. It's not the right time. I'll wait. It's not the right time. My question to them is like, well, when is the right time? How did
There's
you
never
make
a
that
right time.
decision? Because you also were a single mom. You also didn't have a shit ton of money to put into a business. You also didn't even have the background to start the business in the first place.
All
So,
of the above are
like,
true.
explain, yes. So, explain to the listeners what was your big motivation there? Like, what made you be like, I'm going to do this, and believe that you could.
Boy, wow. And believe that I could. Um,
Mm.
my ex-husband, we built a business together, and I learned so much about business through that endeavor. And believe it or not, a lot of my friends and a lot of the community were surprised that I didn't start my own home building business. They were like, how to general contract, this business inside and out, business. Um, but I wanted something that I could call my own, that I learned on my own, that I created on my own, that kind of thing. So when you say you started out from zero, I really didn't, because I had experience. I started out with zero money. Yeah,
Mhm.
I started that. I was a single mom for 4 years before I met my second husband, who Dorian is super supportive. And that motivation, a lot of it was to prove I could do it on my own, to with my kids, you know, my kids that their mom, I don't even know how to describe it. They were off on their own, going to high school, going to college, and, doing their thing. And I wanted to show them the way that they could do it, because if I can do it, anybody could do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no shade being thrown to the ex, because I like to look at a situation and say, that sucked, but what did I learn from it? And I remember I had experience with some members of the family that you are very well close to. And I remember thinking, I learned from that situation was, instead of dwelling on the problems and all of the bad things and all of the negativity, I have learned to ask, but what can I do now? I may not have money to soak into marketing. I may not have all of the things that we think brilliant business leaders need, but what do I have? And what can I do today? What can I do next? And something would always present itself. And so my oldest daughter, she said, Mom, why are you working so hard? And I said, because I don't want to live in your basement when I'm retired.
You're welcome.
She appreciated that. She's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? Right. So just that kind of motivation of wanting to fulfill your own. You knew that you built a king, right? But can I be a queen on my own? And the answer is no, because it takes support. It takes all of those little people along the way, but you have to be the one. And I have learned in the world of business, when you show up and say, wow, you're like really good at this. Can I go out to lunch? I mean, I'll buy you lunch. Can we have a chat? People just like almost throw up everything they know at you. And so it's
yes.
Right? Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I have learned to ask. I have a good friend. Her husband is super successful in St. George. And I was constantly, hey, Christine, can we go out to lunch? Because I was picking his brain through her brain. What do I do next? What can I do? And for people that say, oh, it's not a good time, it was kind of like, you know what? There's also never a good time to get divorced, right? Because it's always somebody's birthday.
Right.
It's always a holiday. It's always, some life event.
Yep.
It's never a good time to do anything hard. And that is the best time to do it. I remember watching a podcast about a country music writer, one of the most successful country music writers there is. And they woke up and it was raining in Nashville and it was terrible.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi,
Gloria.
What's happening?
We're just chatting with your bride there.
You're looking beautiful.
Thank you.
Get out. Love you. So he said, oh, and they didn't want to write songs that day. They didn't want to. Well, then this brilliant songwriter came over and he goes, no, today's the day that the hit comes, because nobody else is doing it today. We've got to pound this out. We've got to go at this. And I never forgot that. And I do that with riding my horses too, because we have, I live in Littlefield, Arizona. We have the most amazing weather here. But on those days when it actually is cold, which is few and far between, or it rains, those are the days you have to be at work. Those are the days that you have to be on your horse, because the people you're competing against aren't. They're not. They called in sick, So I have found those days, and it's all a mindset, right?
Sure.
You know
Everything.
this. You wake up and your mind messes with you. I love it when they say, do not pay attention to your emotions. Like, you wake up and you're like, oh, thinking of all the things, right? There's your brain gives you, because your brain wants to be comfortable.
Yeah, it does. Your
brain
brain is programmed to make you comfortable. That's where it wants you to be at. So when you step outside of that, it's insane. It is absolutely insane. Somebody had said this before. Oh, I remember where it was. I was listening to this podcast and they were saying that Paula Abdul, you know how much I loved her once upon a time. I actually took Aisley to her that was the first concert I ever took her to was Paula Abdul, and she's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
"Mom, you're a weirdo." I was like in heaven. It was
Straight
so good.
up. Yeah, straight up.
Anyways, yep, that somebody had said that they were working with her on American Idol, and she had said to them, always go the extra mile because it's never crowded there, because it's not a road that anyone ever wants to be on. Like people will go to the destination and they stop. It's like, I've done my job. This is my job. I'm doing what is required of me. And like that is the new limitation that we have set. It's like the standard. Like going the extra mile is such a huge thing. If it's like something, this is like in the service industry. You're going to somebody's house. In my junk removal business, I had a guy that worked for me. He's so wonderful. Vinny. We just all love Vinny. But Vinny like pulled this little lady's trash can up to her house. Like we went there to pick up junk. And that was the whole reason why she ended up leaving us this like mile-long review on Google, was she was so impressed that there was a man that would bring her trash can up to the house for her without her having to ask them to do that.
Do you
And
know
I'm
why I
like, what
love
the hell
Paula
has
Abdul?
happened to society? This is insane. It's
Do you
so
know why I
crazy.
love
And she
Paula
watched
Abdul?
it. Why?
Because she lives with chronic pain.
She does.
She lives with chronic pain. They thought that, she did her singing album. She's an amazing dancer. She's an amazing choreographer. And they thought her career was over. And what happens? She comes back and she's one of the best judges, right? So she's one of those people is like, yes, I have chronic pain and it sucks, but what can I do? It's always that question, but what can I do? But what can I do? I may not be able to ever dance again, right? Because she has so much chronic pain, but she can sit there and judge and give everybody insight. And I find I had an amazing experience with a client that came in. She has, her husband was there. She's in a wheelchair. She has a brain disease that is eating away at her brain. And this woman, and I could tell by looking in her eyes, she was there. She showed up. It was not easy. She had questions and she wanted answers. Now, granted, he had to help her navigate that. And to me, she was so inspiring because how many of us just don't even show up, right? We're Netflixing it, we're Yellowstoning it, we're taking off instead of going, it's raining outside. I am going to go write songs because nobody else is there. Or I have chronic fatigue or chronic pain like Paula Abdul is. My life is over as a dancer. But she asked, well, but what can I do? Right. And so those are the things that I love learning and are really fulfilling. People ask me, why do you love barrel racing? You're just running 3 circles or whatever. I have found out that training barrel horses is one of the most fulfilling things I can do. First of all, trying to teach an animal who speaks a foreign language to do something you want them to do is really interesting, and all of the life lessons you learn along the way. And my clients are inspiring, and they come in and all of the life lessons I learned from them in serving them, right?
Yeah.
It's a perpetual wheel that once, as you get into it, right? I take a 15-year-old Tanya to Utah State to show her that there's more to life. And then she shows up in my life and is like, hey, you can start this business. And then I show up in her, and it's this perpetual wheel of helping everybody, of helping. Sometimes I need help and sometimes I'm giving help. And those people who succeed are just constantly like your garbage guy.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do that. He picked up a garbage can because he could, because he looked around and said, but what can I do?
Yes. It's so huge, and it's the smallest little things. It's the smallest things. And I think so many of us get caught up in like, what's this big grandiose thing I can do for my kids or for my employees or, my spouse or something like that. You're like, be happy when they're around. Put your damn phone down and pay attention to somebody, Like
Yeah.
it's the little things like that that will make people remember you, because it's really like the way you make them feel versus what you're doing in the first place, I want people to walk away being like, wow, that was a great conversation. She's a nice person. I
Because
don't know what the
people
hell she was
remember
talking
how you
about,
make them
but we're
feel.
happy. Yes.
They're not going to remember what you said. They're going to remember
No.
how you made them feel.
Remember like the biggest Christmas you could ever give to your kids, and then ask your kids, what'd you get for Christmas in,
They don't know.
2015? And they're like,
They have no idea.
presents.
They have no idea.
But
Yeah.
my kids will always remember that, like cuddling on the couch and watching TV before we go to bed, and like the funny books. Like my kids laugh every time this book comes off of our bookshelf. It was like a book about like the traveling crayons. But when I used to read it to them when they were kids, I used to use a different voice for each one of these crayons. I didn't even remember this. And I started it with Aisley, and then I did it with Cash, and Caleb got it off the bookshelf. Well, our bookshelf flew apart. And he's like, oh, what's this book? And Ainsley's like, oh, remember? And I didn't even remember any of those little things. But
Right.
it's so funny because ask your kids the things they remember. And it's
Right.
always those little, just stupid things that didn't cost a dime, but they felt special because you made it special for them.
Right. Yeah.
It's really cool. It's really, really cool. And that's something in building a service business too. We have stellar reviews. You have stellar reviews. It is the way that people feel when your team has left them. Like they could get our service anywhere, but why do they choose to leave remarks on that stuff? Because statistics show that people bitch more than they actually praise people. And so if you're getting
11
all these
times
people that
more.
are, yeah,
Actually.
and
So
they're getting all these praise.
There will be 11 negative comments to one positive comment.
Isn't
So
that
that was
crazy?
one reason why I decided to get into agent development, because I have a bunch of clients, right? And I love them. I love where I live. I love Mesquite, Nevada, Littlefield, Arizona, St. George, Utah. But I knew that I couldn't service everyone the way I wanted to. And so I thought, I can branch into agent development and teach women who were at the same spot I was, divorced, single mom, or just wanting to start their own business, wanting to be in charge of their own life, and teach them the ropes, the business, and they can help my clients, or at least help people the way I help people, right? I've got a Hispanic girl here in Mesquite. I've got an agent in Moapa Valley who is stellar. Got an agent in Tucson, an agent in Gillette, Wyoming. And this is how I'm able to touch more, right? Because I only have so much time in the day. So now I can teach other agents how to take care of people. And that's, yesterday was just phenomenal. It was, I had 3 out of my 4 agents call me yesterday on how to do things, and I don't have to teach them how to treat people, because if you don't know how to treat people, you're in the wrong business, right?
Yep.
If you can't be respectful, and how do you, and we need to talk about those people. We have clients that are not respectful and that we have to create boundaries for, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And I deserve respect just like you do. You don't, if you have a problem, you don't get to come in here and yell at me. What is the problem? And let's solve it. And so that along with, because I think it's really easy for us as women to take care of people, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
I want to take care of people, but for the clients that I need to have boundaries with, no, that isn't what's going to happen here today. Or I even have sent a few clients, you know what? I'm just not a good fit for you. And maybe so and so down the street would be a better fit. And
Yeah.
those are things that we have to set up. I mean, I am not only good at what I do, if I have a problem and I can't find the answer, whatever, take accountability, but I refuse to be abused in any way, shape, or form. So those are always, as boundaries, as important to learn
Mhm.
as taking care of
Yeah.
people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And teaching that to the agents that you're helping develop too,
Sure.
because I think that's a hard lesson learned along the road of having your own business. Because I think at first you're like, I want to make everybody happy. I don't want to piss anybody off. I don't want a bad review. I don't want any of this. And then you get your first bad review and it stings. Oh, it's like someone pointed and was like, your puppy's ugly or your kid's ugly or something like that, like, ugh, just like a gut punch, you're like, who the hell do you think you are? And then as the other ones come and the next one comes, you're like, you know what? I can look at this as a gut punch, or I can use this as an educational moment for
As a
other people that
lesson.
are looking at my business. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take responsibility because they're obviously upset about something and let them know that I apologize that they feel a certain way. But here's the deal, and here's the reason why. And I'm not going to back down or call and grovel because you were upset with the decision that was made and the old adage of like the customer is always right. No,
No.
they're not. No, they're not. And you don't have to deal with assholes. And a lot of women will take that from
Yes.
people. And I
Yeah.
think you and I have had enough assholes in our life forever that no one should ever come at us.
Yeah, we've had our
Passion's coming out. I'm going to start preaching to people here in a minute, but it's stupid. It is so stupid. And that is something in
we've
development
had
of
to
women.
learn.
I think, yes, it is like, I truly, truly believe that you are best positioned to serve the person that you used to be. And the person that you used to be didn't have the life experiences that you have now. And
Right.
those life experiences, just like you said before, I didn't start with nothing. I started with experience. So many times women discredit the experience that they have. And even if they haven't had a job and you've been at home raising babies for 16 years, you have some damn experience because that is like a superhero job. I could not stay at home all day long with my kids. I would pull my hair out. It is so much to keep track of all day long. I would go crazy. I would go crazy. They are superheroes to me. And
My
when people are like,
sister
how do
is a
you do this?
PE teacher and a vice principal, and this woman has gained her wings because I tell you what, I would be in jail dealing with those parents.
I would also, because I go volunteer at Cash's school and I'm there for like 15 minutes and I'm like, where is the door? Like I would have parents calling me all the time because if I can't do the disrespect thing and it is a whole new level of things.
Right.
But as business owners, you tolerate that stuff in your first years of business because you think that's part of the gig and it's not. And I think that's what's so cool about what you're doing with agent development and, with the Ladies Kickin Ass membership and the community and like helping people. When you have a question about something, don't be afraid to ask. That's something huge that we've brought from this conversation. When you need something, reach out. There's so many people that are business. I love when people ask me for help with a business idea or something like that. Like this is the fun part, you're not in all the crap yet. This is the fun part. This is the dreaming part. And I'm sure you love that too. You
Yeah.
love to be able to share experiences. That's why you see all of these people that have been in business for so long. They sell their business and they're like, well, now I want to help all the other people that are in business. It's like a weird transition thing of like, you
Mhm.
built a business. Now let me show someone else how to do it, which is really cool too, because again, goes right back to what you were saying. Women want to help people and you can help your team and you can build a team, and then they don't need you as much anymore. It's like when you get teenagers and they're like, yeah, we know that you're there if we need a ride. However, we have this going on. You're like, watch from afar, kind of like, oh, they don't need me anymore, but that's so cool too, you know? And then, you're able to go work on other things. So if you find yourself in that season of business too, explore that. Share your stuff with people. Social media is a free platform where people go to find stuff all the time to learn how to run a business. And there is no better experience you can get than asking to go shadow somebody, learning it from somebody online, follow people, see what they do in their business. It's so
So
incredibly cool.
I have a mentor for barrel racing, and she is 1,000% spot on, because it's basically go do it, right?
Mhm.
She can talk, you and I can talk, we can tell them what it's like, we can whatever. But until you get on the horse and you feel what it's like, you're not going to know. Start the damn business. Go and do, and then ask as you're doing. I have so many people that I run into that basically want a master's in knowledge before they even start. And it's
Mhm.
kind of like, no, get in and do, get in the trenches. People see you working, people see you trying, then they help, right? They
Mhm.
help. And it's kind of this snowball effect going on. But as much as I love podcasts and I listen to them all the time, and as much as I love this and sharing this experience with you, because you and I have such a similar past, right? Tough, hard, those kind
Mhm.
of things, where, stay in the closet and cry, or get up and do something. It's your choice.
Yep. Yes.
And but that's the point. They can watch your nice podcast all day, but you got to get up and do. At some point, yeah, in May 2018, I filled out the papers, I saved up the money to have a license, and it was just the next step. I had a fascinating experience with my um, Hispanic agent a month or two ago. I sent her to a Chamber of Commerce, right? I paid for the lunch. It was a really great cause. And I said, you're representing Mary Bundy Insurance. You're an agent, go there and network. She had a really fascinating experience. And she said to me, I felt like I needed to be waiting the tables instead of a business person, right? And so, like, two people talked to her because they knew my business, and they were like, oh, wait a minute, we've seen your picture in the paper. You know
Mhm.
what? No, you're not there to wait tables. You're there to network. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times us as women have so much self-doubt. I'm not here to, I'm not an agent. Yes, you are. You're not here to wait tables. You're here to network. You're here to help others, right? So
Yeah.
I found that really fascinating, that you can tell people she had her licenses. She was an official, agent specializing in Medicare. She was out looking for business, and yet she reverted back to, I just need to wait on everybody. And that's a tough hurdle for us to say. Uh, I was working with a couple other agents in a different office a couple years ago, and they were trying to treat me like a secretary. Would you answer the phones? Would you take the messages? Would you cover this? And I'm like, I'm not your secretary. I'm an agent. And you have to say that. You have to demand that respect, right? I'm not your
Yeah.
secretary. I'm an agent, and you can hire your own
Yes.
secretary, kind of a deal. And I I try to show that respect to others as well, right? But
Yep.
you've got to
Speak up.
believe that in yourself.
Yes. And you know what is so cool about that too, Mary, is that I truly believe, and you grew up this way, you know how I grew up. We didn't see that modeled for us, per se. I sure hell didn't. Like, there's no women in construction, you know, like out there, like owning a business construction in this. All
Women
the
are to
guys in
be
our
seen
family
and not
were in
heard.
it. Yes, you were behind the scenes of stuff. You know, it's like when people call my business, they're like, can I talk to the person in charge? I'm like, I'm her. No, I'd like to talk to the owner. I'm her. So can I, what's his name? Her name is Tanya. It's me. You know, like some people are just damn certain that it's a dude that owns this place, you know? Like it's so cool though, because just like with your agent, she may have felt that because that's what she's seen modeled in her family. Like those were the jobs that women had in her family. I just went to a conference and Jasmine Starr, she does a lot of online marketing work. And she was talking on the stage and she said, I am on this stage. Kills me. I am on the stage today because my ancestors, my aunts, my grandma, my mom were brave enough to come to this country and humble enough to clean this building of where I now stand on the stage to speak. Because how many people, like the stuff that our kids have seen with what we've been able to do, is never going to be a barrier for them,
Oh, my
which it
kids have
was for
outperformed
us
me. Yeah, my kids have
for
outperformed
so
me.
much.
Yeah, my
You
kids have
know, like,
outperformed me already. We talk, all the time, and I'm so amazed, at my kids,
yeah,
but because we decided to stand up for ourselves, it
yeah,
gave them the freedom to work
to
for
do it.
themselves, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And because somebody has a moment of insane courage to stand up for themselves and to change the bullshit, it allows other people to just be brave off the top, you know, like they can just go after stuff. It's not a hurdle for them to just start something, you know? Like
Right.
at 12 years old, like my daughter can just start a business, you know? Like how would that have ever been a thing? Like how the hell would we have ever known that in little old Wyoming? Like, how do you start a business, you know? But at 12, it's like, hey, I just want to start a business. Can you help me do this? Which is so crazy and so cool to see because now someday when she has children, it's just going to be one more layer removed of restriction
Right.
of you can't do this. So
Well,
it
one
really is
thing,
so cool. You don't even know what impact you're having. And we may never know the impact that we're having because 3 generations from now is going to be like, you know what? You know, my great great grandma did, and then there's this cool story behind it. Like I want my kids down the road to have a cool freaking story to tell. Like have a mom, like be somebody that somebody is proud to tell the story about, you know? Not like
well, one thing I do want to address, and I thought this was so great. I was watching a YouTube video, of course, and she was a professional coach, a college coach. And she
mhm,
says, the problem is we are getting overachievers on the basketball teams. And so when they fail once, they fall completely apart. And we have had to learn to teach them that failure is okay. And I had this
yep,
discussion with my son. I was so moved by this video that I was like, son, it's okay. And he's like, Mom, you've been telling me that since the seventh grade. It's not a fail if you learn a lesson, And she said, that's really the number one problem. She goes, I can take a kid out of the ghetto who has struggled and seen some really terrible things in this life and make them super successful because they're not afraid to fail. They're not
yep,
afraid to, they've had it hard. And the
yep,
hardest, and I find it interesting that we're raising this generation of kids that are super achievers that fall apart at the first sign of failure. And so I have failed over and over and over in so many businesses and so many endeavors. It's just not even funny. Until
yep.
you want to know when I stopped failing?
When?
When I decided I wasn't going to. That
Oh,
have I failed in Medicare? Well, I didn't because I learned a lesson, right?
yeah,
The only time you fail is if you don't learn the lesson. And
yeah,
so that's why my Medicare business has not been a failure is because I learned the lessons. And so I think failure, you have so many people that either are afraid to fail or don't know what to do when it happens,
mhm,
or they feel like they've been kicked in the solar plexus instead of looking around. Look at the lesson. What's the lesson? What's the lesson? What's the lesson? And I find it interesting that we're raising these overachievers for kids who get knocked down and don't know how to get back up. Where that's what you're talking about. You and I, because of our history, got knocked and knocked and knocked and knocked and knocked. And one day we decided we're still here. Look at us. We're still
Suckers.
we're still here. So
Oh my God, I love you.
yeah, it's just, and that's what your viewers need to know. If I have somebody come in
Yeah.
and it's like, I felt like I should have been waiting tables instead of being at the head table as an agent, so what did you learn from that?
Yeah.
What did you learn from that? Or I failed in the stock market. So what did you learn from that?
Yep.
It's not, everybody thinks because of social media, if there's a bad post about me, it's the end of the world. And nope.
Yeah. Ask Taylor Swift about that.
Right?
She capitalizes that stuff better than anybody I've ever met. I've ever seen in my life. It's incredible. It is incredible. There's a
Constantly
story.
reinventing herself, constantly.
Oh,
When somebody
constantly.
takes her rights, when somebody buys her rights to her music, what does she do? She turns around and re-records it and tells all of her fans, buy music from me and not the other producer. And he lost millions, because she refused to go, oh, he's got all my music and I'm done for.
Yeah, and became a billionaire in the process.
Yeah. Yep. I thought it was,
Beautiful.
TikToks are always fascinating, but we all know how successful she is, right?
Yeah.
She's a billionaire. And somebody came out with a TikTok that said Errors, ERRORS tour. And it had all of her wardrobe malfunctions, sound not
Yeah.
working, and it had all of her clips of every, mess up that she had during the Eras tour. And you know what? Yeah, Taylor Swift messed up. She did. She had a million things go wrong. And you know what? She kept singing. She made $1 billion.
Yep.
Yep. She had lots of mistakes during the Eras tour, and I'm sure, her team had to figure it out. So
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Just don't give up. Don't give up.
perseverance.
Oh my gosh. Well, I could sit and talk to you forever, like we always do every time we talk to each other. So, oh my gosh. Well, this has been such an incredible conversation. Anybody that is listening to this is inspired beyond belief, because it is truly a story, a lot of little mini stories of wonderful things that you can do not only in your personal life, but also if you strive to, or in the thick of building a business, are really small tactical things that you can actually start implementing in your business or start doing right away to start a business.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for all of that insight. If anyone wants to connect with you online, where is the best place to find you?
So I have a website, teambundyins.com.
Okay.
Really, my email, marywbundy@gmail.com. If you're interested in being an agent or want to know more about business, or, or the good old telephone, you know what? Call and say,
Yes.
hi, I've heard you're a Medicare agent. Tell me about that. Oh, I think I can do that. Do you want to train me?
Yes. There you go. God, I hope somebody calls you. That would just make this whole thing so good. There's going to be a follow-up if somebody calls you. We're going to do it. We'll do it. We'll do an Insta Live on that one.
So that's how I started, babe. That's how I started. And he hung up. But his wife is Christian, and she thought the best thing to do would be to help a girl out. I had to make the deal, right? I had to make the deal. I had to say, Tony, I'm not here to take any of your business. I won't even look at my dad's phone. In fact, my parents stayed his clients until he retired. And then that was when I got my Idaho license, and I took my parents away. But I've still left all of their friends. I've a few, but Yeah. And really, it's all about action. It's the 75 hard. Wake up today, no matter what your emotions say. I can't do it. I feel like I should be waiting tables instead. I don't feel like I can do this. I mean, I'm not
Five,
one
four,
to
three, two, one.
I'm not one to say the F word, but how much do we love Elon Musk's for saying, "Hey, F off, okay? You don't get to
Yeah.
control me with your money." And you need to tell your emotions that. You need to tell all of your self-doubt that. What can I do today? That's my
Yes.
parting. What can I do today?
What can I do today? So there's going to be a parting question because there's always a parting question on this podcast,
Okay.
which is what can I do today is also good. So everybody write that one down and just stick it on your computer screen. You know what? My favorite place anywhere of like stuff I'm trying to pay attention to or be like more present with is put it on the lock screen on your phone because you pick that beast up like a bajillion times a day and
Right.
then you just keep saying it and you just keep saying it. So that is a beautiful
That's a
thing. What
great
can I do
tip.
today?
That's a great
Yeah.
business hack right there, Miss Tanya.
So, Miss Mary, I am in the process of writing a book. And my book
Why am I
is
not
called
surprised?
Ladies Kickin Ass. And it
Okay.
is all about everyday women that are out there just making shit happen. And that is literally the tagline of the book. And I love it so much because it's so inspiring every time I interview someone on this podcast. When I ask them this question,
Okay.
I've never had two of them be the same. So,
Oh,
although it
the
sounds like
pressure.
a pretty synonymous question, like somebody would have like the same type of idea, it's very different in its little nuances.
Okay.
So, tell me, Mary, what does the phrase ladies kicking ass mean to you in your life? If you hear she's a lady kicking ass, what does that mean to you? What do you think of?
In barrel racing, they're not known for supporting each other. In fact, the warm-up pen is either called the shark tank or the snake pit, right? So for me, ladies kicking ass are those that do, right? It's my mentor who isn't afraid of me getting better than her. It's you, right? Who's not afraid if you teach me about business that I'm going to make more money than you. It's me taking on more agents and exciting if they build an agency for themselves. Ladies Kickin' A is all about being secure in ourselves enough to help somebody else. Have you ever heard the story of, I'm going to leave you with this story. Are you ready? Is this more than you
Love
bargained for?
I love it.
Have you heard the story of Barbara Mandrell and Loretta Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay. My dad told me this story growing up, and I have never forgotten it. And it's probably what I base my whole, business thing around. Barbara Mandrell, as we know, is one of the most talented country artists that ever lived. And
Mhm.
she helped her sisters. Both of her sisters wanted to become country singers. She supported them in the Barbara Mandrell show where they got to act and showcase their singing and their musical talents. Barbara Mandrell did everything she could to help her two sisters with their dreams, right? Neither
Mhm.
one of them surpassed Barbara. They're both beautiful and talented in their own right, but it just didn't happen. Then there's Loretta Lynn. And her sister, Crystal Gale, asked her for the same thing. I want to become a country music singer just like you. And Loretta Lynn was like, you know what? I did it by myself. You can do it on your own.
Mhm.
Crystal Gale became one of the most amazing country singers of all time, right? And to this day, most people don't know that Loretta Lynn and Crystal Gale are sisters.
I didn't know that. And I know country. I didn't know
No.
they were sisters. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yeah. And so my dad said, it never pays to not help somebody. If your
Mhm.
sister wants to become a great country music singer, be secure enough to teach her everything you have because anything you give will come back to you tenfold. And I know that you know this to be true.
Yes. Oh, so good. So, so good. Thank you so very much. I am so thankful for you. And I just Love you to pieces.
Oh, I am not only your aunt, but what's more important to me is I am your friend.
Yes. Thank you.
You okay, honey?
Mhm.